Hey, so I'm gonna do the whole formal introduction. Nice to meet you, Donna. All right,
Perfect. Nice to
folks,
meet you.
we are now being joined by Donna Louden, who was part of the cast for the traveling Bright Star. She started out in Los Angeles, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to be interviewed by our very own Natalie Tysdal, Natalie's mama, and also a professional morning show host. So this is a delightful moment, hopefully, for all of you. She knows a little bit about you guys, and now you're going to learn a little bit about her.
Hi.
Okay, I had to unmute. Hi, Donna, and hi, everybody.
Hi.
Sally's going to come into this. So, okay, so we're all kind of meeting each other for the first time. Hi, everybody back at Valor. Good to see you. Like your face shields. Looking good. So, Donna, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it. And I'm going to tell everybody a little bit of history here, and then we'll dive right into some questions to honor your time and the kiddos who are, I shouldn't call them kiddos, they're high schoolers who are rehearsing. So my best friend from college is a performer, and she knows Donna performing with her. Her name is Tracy. And so when I told Tracy, I was on the phone with her, and I said, I'm so excited. My daughter's school is doing Bright Star. And she said, you have to meet Donna. Like, she's awesome. And she was in Bright Star and the national tour, and then in Salt Lake City. And so that's what led to this conversation. And Donna and I have been texting. So we thought it would just be fun to hear your history with Bright Star, your history performing, and just learn a little bit more about you. So rather than me try to do an introduction on your past, why don't you just tell us about yourself?
So I'm from San Diego, and like you said, I did the production of Bright Star, the national tour. That show debuted in Los Angeles, and we did what is called a co-production, where a team of theaters partnered together to produce a show. So we did a co-pro, is what they call it, in Los Angeles, in San Francisco, and then in Salt Lake City. And then from Salt Lake City, it went on its national tour. I was a swing in that show, which basically means that I cover multiple characters in the show, and I don't perform nightly. So I covered the ensemble women, and I also covered Alice Murphy. So who in this cast is if you're in the ensemble, raise your hand.
Can you see it?
Raise your, can you, if you're, okay, so who's playing Alice?
Where are you, Kyrie?
Give me like a giant wave.
Stand up, Kyrie.
Oh, there you are. Oh, hello. Wonderful. Hi. So I covered Alice Murphy, and then about a year and a half later, I got to play the role in Sandy at Hale Center Theater. I also worked for Disney. I played Elsa in Frozen Live at the Hyperion. I got to originate that role and start that. And then I guess recently I moved to New York City. However, I'm not there right now because of coronavirus.
So I'm going to ask you a few questions, Donna, and I'm going to let everyone in the cast or anyone else joining ask you some questions too. But I thought we'd just kick it off by, let's start with, we're really excited to hear about your experience, of course, in Bright Star and some others. But can you tell us just a little bit about how you got started as a performer?
Well, I started in after-school programs. I was like super wiggly as a child, and so my parents were always like, we need to get her into something, like anything, whatever will calm her down, give me an outlet. So I did an after-school program that had like 6 weeks of pottery and 6 weeks of music and 6 weeks of musical theater, and that was like the musical theater section of that stuck, and I became obsessed. I went on to do a youth theater program all during high school. And then when I graduated, I went to university to study musical theater.
So did you always know that you wanted that to be your career?
You know what? I can't remember ever wanting to do anything else. So yes, there was a long period of time where all I wanted to do was like recording studio singing and that whole thing. But musical theater is so fun because it's a team activity and you get to tell a story and costuming and sets and like a whole story comes to life. So for me, musical theater was like kind of like a no-brainer. It's like, if you want to do acting, you want to do music, you want to do all this stuff. It's like, okay, well then that's it.
Well, let's talk about Bright Star.
Mm-hmm.
What do you love about that show, and what advice might you have for this group? So we're a high school group in Denver, Colorado. Probably going to be one of the first, I understand, groups to put on a show here locally, especially in a high school, through the pandemic. You can see they're all wearing face shields. They've been rehearsing like that. But let's just talk specifically about the show and what you like about it, and more of your feelings on it.
So I love Bright Star. I had never heard of the show. I mean, when the show came out, it ran for, gosh, what is it, 4 months on Broadway? I think only 4 months on Broadway. It came out the same season as Hamilton, as Color Purple Revival, as Waitress. I mean, it was like, it came out in the year that there was like huge heavy hitter shows. So
Wow.
it just really wasn't gonna last on Broadway because it's delicate and sweet and wholesome. Like, it just came out at the weirdest time. So I remember watching the Tonys on TV, and If You Knew My Story was the song that they did as their like Tony show song. So I don't know if we're familiar, but so in the award show of the Tonys, when you open a production on Broadway, they will perform on the Tonys. So those are the shows that get airtime. And so that was my only experience watching it. And I remember being like, this music's good, but who is this? Like, what is this show? And then I never heard about it again until I knew that it was going to tour, and the home city was going to be out of Los Angeles. So I was living in LA at the time, and that's when I started really doing research into the show. And I'm sure you guys know the show is written by Steve Martin and Edie Brickell. Edie Brickell is a folk singer, and had like some hits in the 80s, and has like a really cool kind of mellow sound. And listening to all that music, getting to know their writing together, that was like a huge thing for me. So a recommendation for you guys, if you don't know the music of Steve Martin and Edie Brickell together, specifically the album Always Will, that's where almost all the music comes from for the show. And it's really cool to hear like the first iterations of all of those songs, specifically the song Always Will. There's like so many recordings of it. And throughout the show, all the musical themes that are woven in, you can find in other albums of theirs. So in a sense, the show is a jukebox musical, but also not.
It's such a fun show. So any other advice before we open it up to them, advice for like making this show sing, if, put it into those words, just really making it, especially because they're going to have limitations with face shields, limited audience, all of that.
Yes. So because the music is so beautiful and it's so emotional, and the story is so like, the story is so emotionally present, and everything is pretty on the nose. Like, if it's Southern, it's Southern. What I have been told in the numerous productions that I've done is really don't lean into that. Don't lean into how sad everything is. Don't like make it a dirge, because that really slows the show down. Focus on the beauty and the lightness of the show. The show's about humanity. It's about good people making bad decisions. It's not about bad people and good people. Everybody is trying to do the right thing, and everybody makes giant mistakes during the course of this time. You know, specifically with the mayor. So who's playing the mayor? Oh, over there, we can't see him. Oh, okay.
You guys can stand up. You can talk. We know you're not shy people.
Oh, there's the mayor. Hi, mayor.
Well,
You're not a bad guy. You're a good guy. You just do the wrong thing over and over and over.
So Munsterman, I'll let you kind of open it up to the floor there in the cast. I know they probably have questions more interesting than my questions.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Anybody have any questions they would like to ask Donna about her life as an actor, what it was like to travel with Bright Star, what it's like to be a professional in the industry during the time of COVID? Whatever. Anything that comes to your mind. This is a great opportunity. Let's talk to somebody who is very much like you, but ended up taking the path that you want to take and is now doing the dream outside of COVID anyway, right? Questions?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say that your biggest sacrifice was in pursuing a life?
What would you say your biggest sacrifice was in pursuing the life of being a performer?
That's a great question. I think ultimately it's your time, because being a performer is not something like being a professional performer is not something that you do in your spare time. It's something that you do all the time. The amount of time and focus that it takes in terms of going to school, the after school practices. I mean, you guys know what that's like. You have to dedicate tons of time, you know, that joke, like, I have rehearsal. It's like, that is true. You are always in rehearsal. And if you're not in rehearsal, you're in class. And if you're not in class, you're in a workshop. And if you're not in a workshop, you're at home resting your voice, or you're going to dance. You know, and then becoming a professional performer, it's like, when you are performing, something to keep in mind is that, like, you're the entertainment for people during the most important times, like Christmas and New Year's, and like all the times where everyone wants to get together as families. What do they want to do? They want to see a show. So then you get to be that person to deliver that joy to so many people and their families. But that is a sacrifice, to know that, okay, this might look different. Like the way that you spend time might look different. But that being said, it doesn't feel like a sacrifice in the sense of, like, because I have a very supportive family, so they always come to see the shows. They always are, like, super understanding. So I would say your time is the biggest sacrifice, but also, like, when you find something that you love that much, it doesn't feel like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, you know?
Yeah.
Cool. Other questions? Ethan.
Hi. Most of us have always done, like, kind of shows on the same stage for whoever knows how long. What is it like to be in a touring company where you're not always on the same stage and you always have to, like, adjust to that?
That was a huge learning curve for me, specifically as a swing, because you already feel like you're upside down and underwater the whole time, because you're like, really hope I'm doing the right thing. Like, you know, we had a joke between the swings where if somebody made a mistake, they were like, 50-50 chance, like, I could get it right, or I could totally get this wrong. And then when you add on the element of, like, where's the bathroom backstage, or what's, you know, how much wing space do we have, or whatever, that makes things crazy. Now, being on a touring stage, basically what they'll do is they have like a box set stage that moves. I mean, it's a bunch of different boxes that kind of come up that are full of all the set and stuff, including the floor. So the floor, the lighting, the you know, even the actual backstage, like the back of what you're seeing, that's all travels with you. So once you get on stage, it's all exactly the same, but things do change, like sight lines and stuff. So they'll change things like, okay, I know that you usually go, do you guys perform on, like, do you guys work with numbers? Like, okay, you're on 0. Or are you guys like center
No,
stage, stage right?
Yeah, we've got center stage marked, and they all know the directions, but we don't do the numbers, which we probably should, especially with bigger shows.
So if you're, so like, let's say, I mean, when you're touring a show, like everything has to be really specific. Otherwise people can get hurt. When you're pretty solitary, like, or stationary, it's kind of a different thing. Cause you're like, well, I know exactly where I am at all times in the audience and stuff. But so we work with numbers. So if you're on, like, normally on 2, but there's a crazy sight line, they might say, actually, we need you to move out to 4. So things are always in flux, which is why there's lots of rehearsals on tour and things like that. But I mean, I think that my biggest takeaway in most things in theater that translate, I think, into most areas of your life is to stay flexible and to never like hold on to anything so hard, because it doesn't serve you as a performer. It doesn't serve you as a person to be rigid. Working with people, you have to be flexible and gracious. Everyone's doing their best. Everyone wants a good show.
Cool. What else?
So some of us are getting ready to look at colleges and do auditions and that kind of thing. So what was that process like? And then where did you end up choosing? What was it like?
So I went to school for music, not musical theater. So that was a bit of a different experience for me. And what I looked for was small class size. I looked for competitive programs. I looked for things like what the prerequisites were in terms of going to grad school. Like that was a very specific journey, going to school for music. But so many of my friends have gone to school for musical theater. And I think that the journey for them, a lot of it has to do with prepping for auditions, and you go and you audition for the school. I mean, I'm sure that you guys are encountering that. And I would imagine that this year it's going to look a little bit different. There's going to be much more like video auditions and things like that. So a lot of people do tutoring to help prep people for auditions, which is an awesome opportunity. If you have an opportunity to be tutored by a professional and to prepare that way, that's awesome. But also, like, I don't know. I think that there's something to be said for studying outside your field. If you're going to school for musical theater and you're going to like Michigan, University of Michigan, or you're going to Penn State, or you're going to schools that are like, this is all we do, then that's one thing, because the connections that you're going to build are huge. But if you're like, I have interest in other things, musical theater might be something that you're able to study outside or able to minor in. Just knowing that like the work that you do is so much more important than the degree that you have.
Can I follow up on that, Donna? Do you think it's hard to get roles later in life harder if you don't have that degree or that experience, or did that make a difference for you?
The experience is huge, but the degree really, like, nobody's going to look at your theatrical resume and be like, well, she studied biology. They're not going to care. If anything, they're going to be excited that you're interesting, you have something to talk about, you know. The most important thing is to get experience, to have experience in shows and to have really good training. And at this level, being in high school, I think it's really important to make sure that if you're trying to pursue this professionally, that you really work on being in private voice lessons, being in dance, however that looks right now, is how it looks right now. And that is something that you guys could speak to that so much more than me, because I am not in the academic world. You know, this wasn't my life experience. So you guys are rock stars. But also taking acting, like, get to know some plays, read scripts. That's huge. But it is a lot harder to work later in life if you just like jump in without any experience. But that being said, like sometimes that still works out. It just depends on the person. But really the ultimate thing is be good.
That matters.
That matters the most.
You guys probably have other questions. I do want to be sure that we ask what it's like being a performer. That's your profession. That's your how you pay your rent, I assume, like wherever you are. What's it like during the pandemic? I mean, your show was canceled, shut down, postponed. Like, what's it like for your world right now?
So when like the beginning, so I was in a production of Bright Star. We had opened at the end of January, and we were supposed to close May 4th. And it was the beginning of March, and everything was like, wow, Italy is a mess. That's crazy. You know, like, and you're looking at other countries, and I was like, wow. You know, I'm not thinking we're just like totally dumb. I mean, and so when the member of the Utah Jazz got sick and that's when they shut entertainment down across the United States, was when the player of Utah Jazz got sick. That was pretty devastating because you literally went from like a thriving like artist community and like specifically within like artists, Actors Equity, the union that I'm a part of, like really making some great strides towards a lot of cool things that they were doing, to just having your theaters all leveled and empty. I mean, that was pretty devastating. So, you know, and even at the time it was like, well, we thought we were going to be shut down for 2 weeks. Like we didn't think it was going to be like, we didn't think this was going to happen. But what I can say in regards to the artist community is that I have never encountered a more resilient group of people. We know what it's like to work hard. We know what it's like to hustle. We know what it's like to pivot and to be like, okay, well, that's not happening. What are we doing now? What are we doing now? Lots of us had side jobs anyway, so that was like a really good thing. I mean, the thing that's a bummer about it is that most of the side jobs were also in like service, which then those got shut down. But since friends start businesses with like personal styling and making masks and, you know, working for health and wellness companies and different things like that. So like, that's the route that I had chosen. I was like, I wanted to have more than one stream of income before everything shut down. And so luckily for me, I had started that a few months before this started. So I had something going on, but like my boyfriend, who's like, he's working over there in the back, he was doing a show, had no other job. So he's had to work really hard, and he's now working for a nonprofit. I think, you know, this is just another thing in life about being flexible and being willing to try new things and work together and like be able to come back safely, you know. And a lot of people have started doing things online, which are amazing, like these really cool online cabarets that we've been able to be a part of. And they partner with theaters, so they're able to provide entertainment for their audiences that would normally be in theaters, and the quality has just gotten fabulous. So that's been really encouraging.
That's cool to see.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, what else do you want to know before we let her go in 5 or 6 minutes?
Hi.
Mhm.
So swing, like, what is some of your advice? Like, we have like understudies in our show. And so I was wondering, like, what some advice you could give us of like juggling like different roles and like being on top of both of them and being able to like jump in here and there. Because I know like you covered multiple roles, and as you're touring, you were able to keep up with that.
Mm-hmm. Are you an understudy?
Yeah.
Yes, she is. She's Alice's
Who?
understudy.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So,
That's
so
Alice. That's Alice. That's her understudy. Alice.
Okay, so understudying and swinging are super different. But I've also understudied a ton. So the reason why understudying and swinging are different is because when you're an understudy, you have a point of reference. You're on stage. And so it's like, okay, here am I. Maybe I'm like woman 3, or like maybe I'm, the well-dressed woman who's like, oh my gosh, it's been like 3 months and all of a sudden I can't remember any of the lines of the show. So like, let's say you're on stage and you're in the ensemble, but you see Alice going by during My Baby a ton, or you see, Alice is over here. So you have a point of reference to be like, when I'm here, Alice is here. And that is so valuable because it gives you a perspective when you do start rehearsing or stepping into the Alice role backstage and learning that you're able to be like, okay, when I'm here, Alice is over here, which means that I'm over here, and learn from there. I would recommend that you write in different colored pen that's like super not it's not like an inspiring thing to say, but it will help you so much to have different colors for different roles, or like highlight with different colored lines. I did like note cards. So I had like 3x5 cards, and it had like the act 1, scene 1, and then it was all the blocking, like really specific blocking, but like small detailed. And then I hole punched the side and I put it on a little ring so that I could like tuck it into my tights. And if anything went scary, I could go backstage. Like when I was backstage, I could look. I wasn't just like, oh, I hope everything's okay. So at least you have a lifeline. So take really good notes, color code, have a frame of reference, pay really good attention. Don't ever mess around. You have an incredible job. You have a harder job than most people in the show when you're understudying. So you have the responsibility to know what's going on at all times. If Alice is getting notes, those are your notes. So you can't not pay attention. You have to listen when she's getting notes. Also, remember that when the person is learning, the person playing the role, they need the space to learn that. So the best thing to do would be to stay back and listen. Don't crowd the person playing the role too much. So just let them learn and learn from a distance, but always pay attention. So have your ears perked up. And then if there's anything that's like crazy that you're like, okay, I cannot figure this out after a few weeks, then that's something that you can approach either Alice or approach the director and say, hey, I'm having a hard time, or whoever is, in charge of dance. If it's the directors doing all of it, then that's the person to go after.
Great advice.
Thank you.
We got time for about one more. Who's got the final killer question?
The pressure is on.
All right.
So just as a performer, you exert your body, you go through a lot. How do you stay healthy during long rehearsal hours, long show weeks? How do you stay healthy?
That's a really, really good question.
Especially now.
Drinking tons and tons of water. Not staying up too late, making sure you're getting good sleep, having proper meals. Don't skip breakfast. I think the basic things that we hear about in terms of how to stay healthy, you have to really stay on top of. You can't be like, oh yeah, take your vitamins, eat well. That's huge. But then also, like, as a singer, then you kind of are adding into another element of like, okay, well, you can't go screaming with your friends. You can't be like singing the entire score of Dear Evan Hansen and then come to rehearsal the next day and you're like, oh my gosh, like my throat, that's crazy, I can't sing. Like, you can't do that. You've got to like keep it cute all the time so that you're ready to perform. And then just making sure that you're staying strong, if you guys like to exercise or to dance, like that's a huge thing. Just so that you feel like your body's able to move. Always stretch before rehearsal. It's always about keeping up with the basics. Like the things that are basic that people are like, yeah, do that. And then we kind of forget about it. You can't forget about it. But then in terms of like, if you're tired vocally from a show, always have hot tea. Throat coat tea is the best. Steam, use humidifiers. You guys know what that's like. You are in like the highest, driest. It's crazy. You guys are fabulous. There's no air up there. How do you do it?
It is. Great advice.
Oh man. Do you guys know that
have-
in touring companies, backstage in Denver, they have oxygen tanks for people that aren't used to the climate that you guys, do you guys know that?
I've heard that.
That's what they have.
Yeah.
That is true. They have oxygen tanks backstage so that when people come off and they're like, I can't breathe, there's no air in Denver, that they have oxygen. That's how strong you guys are. Yes, that's how strong you guys are. Anyway,
That's interesting.
if you don't know that, you have to know that.
It's good to train here so that when we go anywhere else, it's easier.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Munsterman, anything?
Donna, is there anything else? Yes, hello. Is there anything else you would like to share with these guys off the top of your head as we close out?
You all are in one of the most pivotal times in our history. And as high schoolers, you are seeing so much that I never had to see, that your teachers never had to see, what you're experiencing right now, going to school during the pandemic and all of this. This is, it's unprecedented. And I just want to tell you guys that, from all of us, truly, this probably sounds cheesy, but it is true. Like, people around the country that are looking to the students that are in school right now, that we think you're amazing. Like, I really wish you guys the best. I hope that this experience is exciting to do this show, that you guys have a good time, that you're able to enjoy being around your friends and with your teachers. And I just encourage you to soak up as much as you can with the experiences that you have right now, because it's not, because nobody's ever experienced this before, so that's my recommendation, is just have the most fun that you can have. And I just give you guys an applause, because y'all, I don't think I could rehearse with a mask on.
Both.
I know, you're suited up.
Donna, you're the best. We really appreciate you. And I know I'm speaking for everyone back at Valor and Denver and our community that we wish the best for you. And now we're all following you. I sent out your Instagram to them. So
Oh, wonderful.
follow your progress and what you're doing. And it was super fun to watch some of your performances online. And you're amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to come, and thank you for inviting me, Natalie. I'm so grateful to meet you guys, and thank you again.
Yeah, we'll be following you, and hope that you get back on stage soon, because you obviously belong there. So
thanks. Break legs, everybody.
Okay, bye. Care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.